But there's also other stuff like just how the regime works. What exactly is expected of Glinda and Fiero. There's like little bits and pieces here where they show bad stuff, right? Like when they start putting into place travel restrictions, first for the animals and then for the munchkins. Everybody thought it would just hit the animals. It's this whole thing about first they came for this group and I didn't say anything. And then finally they came for me and then there was nobody left to speak for me. And that is kind of what the munchkins experience in this, right? Where they always thought it would hit somebody else and then it hits them. And at that point, there's nobody left to help them or speak up for them. That was kind of the one part where I said, yeah, okay, this feels real. But then there's other places where it just outright makes no sense, right? I mentioned one thing earlier where Madame Morrible and the wizard decide if Elphaba is killed, that will kind of paint them as the heroes and that will give them all the control they need. The wizard says at one point, if Elphaba dies, I will no longer have to blame the animals. And I'm just sitting there saying, blame them for what? Even in the second movie, we've not seen anything related to why the wizard is in power, why he's a dictator, why the animals are being scapegoated.
That was like one thing that I remembered from the first movie that we discussed about like this whole animals and why they were being persecuted and why they were being sort of kind of outcasted. I was like actively looking for it in the second movie. What's the whole purpose of animals being sort of shunned? The whole like grand plan is behind it. Like what's the motivation behind it? And I couldn't see anything. I didn't find anything. I was just kind of like scratching my head as to like what any of it actually meant. So I agree on the animal part, and then just kind of on top of that, the whole like world of it and like how just like the characters just kept on interacting with each other.
And you might say that's not all of this is not really the point. All of this is about those three characters making choices and their friendship and them choosing to be on the right side or the wrong side and all of that. But I think that's kind of the problem, that because all of that is so flimsy and all of that is so ill-defined, and this is everything from the geography to the politics to what it is people believe about the animals to how powerful exactly Elphaba is, all of that kind of feeds into the choices people make and it gives them lack of context. What atrocities are Glinda and Fiero complicit in exactly? Like in the beginning, we see the yellow brick road was built by indentured labor from the animals, and there's not a whole lot else, right? Like then like we have the travel restrictions, which is obviously draconian, but it does not feel like a police state. It does not feel like a dictatorship in that way, right? And so when characters like Fiero and Glinda are kind of conflicted, it feels quite hollow. What is living in Oz like? What are people afraid of? What happens to people who disobey? You know what I mean? Like it's all kind of missing, and because of that, the stakes are missing. And I think that is really the key part that makes all of this kind of stumble, which is that it kind of makes Fiero and Glinda feel very immature and spoiled, because ultimately what they're just giving up is comfort, right? They can't be bothered to give up the luxuries, right, that they have, right? But without properly defined stakes and without clear consequences of what happens in either scenario, depending on what choice they make, it feels a little bit like they simply don't want to give up all the money.